Super pleased to have with us on the line Congressman Marc Pocan, brilliantly representing the 2nd District of Wisconsin. His website, pocan.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep. Marc Pocan, M-A-R-K-P-O-C-A-N, R-E-P-M-A-R-K-P-O-C-A-N. And Congressman, welcome.
Thanks, Tom. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you with us. What are you up to?
Oh, actually, I'm right now in Baltimore. We're having our Democratic Issues Conference for the next several days to, talk about and strategize for the coming months. But last weekend we had our Progressive Caucus retreat, and we had a really great conversation. What's unique about the Progressive Caucus versus other caucuses is we are a caucus that meets with the inside and outside groups together. So we're meeting with our progressive partners, looking at what kind of things we can do. And I think we came out of there really energized and now ready for this retreat. And hopefully after a couple of retreats, it's all action.
That's great. I got I'm on the mailing list for, I think this was moved to amend.org. It might have been pdamerica.org. It was one or the other, that the congressman from Minnesota led the introduction of a constitutional amendment into the House that you signed on to say that money's not speech and corporations aren't people. Do I have that right?
Yeah, Rick Nolan and I, it's an amendment essentially exactly that, with the move to amend folks to make sure that we're saying it that simple, that money is not free speech and corporations are not people. And if you do something as simple as that, you can address a very large part of the ugly and unaccountable money that enters our system.
Yeah, that's great. Are there any particular issues that are at the top of your list that you'd like to discuss, or do you want to just start picking up phone calls?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the big thing right now I think that a lot of people are talking about, and I think just absolutely outrageous in the Senate. We get outrageous activities out of President Trump several times a day, including his most recent Trump against Nordstrom for dropping his daughter's product line.
Yeah, isn't that illegal?
It should be. Well, it got sent out by his official Twitter account, which makes no sense. But this is a time of no sense coming out of the White House. But the fact that in the Senate, Mitch McConnell stopped Elizabeth Warren from reading Coretta King's letter on Jeff Sessions, and then later in the night, Jeff Merkley was allowed to do it, and now she's banned for the next 30 hours from speaking on the floor, is something that I think is just absolutely outrageous. And, this can't be the new normal that's allowed in a democracy, where people can shut people off if they just don't want to hear what they have to say, especially when you're a duly elected, representative of the government.
Yeah, I'm with you. In fact, in the first hour of the program, I read Scott King's letter. And also there's even more amazing, there's a piece in USA Today, it's right on the homepage of their website, by, there was the, I don't have it in front of me any longer, so I'm sorry, I'm not remembering her name. Evelyn was her first name, as I recall. But, there was these three people that Jeff Sessions prosecuted. And she and her husband had to, because they were bringing in black voters, and she and her husband, they had to sell their farm. They were facing, literally, Jeff Sessions hit them with 100 years in jail each. And she tells this story in this article in USA Today that is just blinding. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. It's
And this is, I think the things that we just have to stand against. And I think hopefully what this is going to do is make people even more aware of what her words were against Jeff Sessions, but also make people more aware that Elizabeth Warren is someone who scares the heck out of the Republican leadership because she's very effective. And much like last year when we had our sit-in over the issue of guns, and we had, Paul Ryan shut off the cameras, and we were able to get way more of an audience because we use social media, Periscope, and other ways to get the message out there. This is exactly what's happening right now, I think, with this issue.
Yeah, that's great. It's absolutely great. So should we pick up some phone calls here?
Absolutely, love to.
Okay. Kevin in Scarsdale, New York. You are on the air with Congressman Marc Pocan.
Hi, good afternoon, guys. Thanks for taking my phone call.
Sure.
Hi, Kevin.
I just have a specific question. I'm sure you're familiar with David Clarke in Milwaukee.
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay. I'm just curious how the Democratic Party of Wisconsin is letting him run as a Democrat. I mean, this guy is a murderer. I mean, in the year 2016, he had someone die in his jail from thirst. I mean, I'm just curious how this is allowed to happen.
Yeah, so the way we do things in Wisconsin is, the access to the ballot is relatively easy. Anyone can run on any party ballot. And we have, in a quite organized fashion, tried to get people to be aware of what David Clarke's about. The problem is conservative talk radio in Milwaukee is actually pretty powerful, and they are always out promoting him. And in Wisconsin, you can cross and vote in a Democratic primary even if you happen to be a Republican. You can't vote in both primaries in one election, but you can, especially in the Milwaukee area where there's not a lot of Republican primaries, you can vote in that Democratic primary. And he's been able to get through because of that time and time again, even though people like Representative Gwen Moore, an outstanding member of Congress from Milwaukee, has not endorsed him or endorsed other people in Democratic primary against him. What they do is they get crossover support, and that's part of the old Fighting Bob LaFollette tradition of how we have open primaries in Wisconsin. But that's what happens, and trust me, he's an embarrassment to our state on multiple levels. Not just the fact that people have died in his jails, but, he's going around making hundreds of thousands of dollars in honorarium and other fees instead of actually being the sheriff of Milwaukee County, and constantly fighting with other local elected officials in the Milwaukee area. And really, he kind of desperately wants to be a Fox commentator more than a law enforcement official.
Didn't he essentially endorse Trump?
Oh, absolutely. He spoke at the convention, and he was hoping to be Secretary of Homeland Security. The problem is someone with that little qualifications even got rejected by Donald Trump, and this is a guy who, put people in charge of departments that don't even know they existed or what they do. So it's a pretty low bar to not be able to cross, and David Clarke didn't. And, clearly, again, he's an embarrassment by every standard, and I think there'll be hopefully a more serious challenge. I mean, one of the things are people asking, the governor to try to get him removed. There is a way to do that. And, of course, Governor Scott Walker is not likely to do that. But it's risen to a level it hasn't risen before in trying to get rid of him.
So he's essentially pulling a George Wallace. Dave in Armstrong Creek, Wisconsin, watching us on Free Speech TV. You're on the air with Congressman Marc Pocan.
Hi, Mark and Tom.
Hey, Dave.
Today I'd like to talk about, I live in far northeastern Wisconsin, okay? And I'm from Madison originally, and my politics are kind of influenced back in the 60s and 70s from that area. And you can imagine how isolated I feel up here. And I'm just wondering about the gerrymandering in our state. Is there any chance that the districts are going to get redrawn in 2020? And what can I do to help with that?
Sure. Well, first of all, there's a redistricting suit that is making them redraw the lines right now, and the Republican legislature just hired a very, very expensive law firm that I think their average billing is like something like $800 to $900 an hour to try to gerrymander the lines again, but try to follow the law maybe a little more closely. So there's a small chance that there could be some pickups even in 18, depending on what happens with the new lines, because if they go too extreme and the Democrats put together a more fair map, that the courts could decide that that's a better map. So there is a small chance that by 2018 you'll have an opportunity. Otherwise, no question in Wisconsin, what matters is the statewide elections in 2018, not just that Tammy Baldwin is up for re-election for Senate, but Scott Walker is up for re-election as governor, and right now he's sitting with about a 43% approval rating. Good opportunity to maybe get a new governor in there, so we've got some safeguards for the next redistricting process. And then again, potentially because of this lawsuit, an opportunity to change the maps. But on a bigger picture, Dave, I personally am an advocate for what we see in Iowa and California and a few other places where you have a citizens panel drawing the lines for our districts. Because when you ask politicians, they decide that they're going to select their voters rather than voters selecting their elected officials. And the best way to deal with this is to have an independent panel outside of the politics of having elected officials do it. If we move that way in Wisconsin and other states, you can get rid of this issue nationwide, which is corrupting us in a number of states.
Right. California has done that, and it's worked out very well for them.
And Iowa.
Susie in Eureka, Montana. Real quick question. We have just a little over a minute here before the break.
Yes, sir. It's a basically point of strategy since Rule 19 was invoked yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
that the Democrats need to come together and point out that simply by invoking that point of order and silencing Elizabeth Warren, that makes the candidate not qualified, since she was speaking the truth.
Yeah, Susie, I can tell you, Democrats are pushing hard. Multiple people have then read the letter. So since Senator Warren got silenced, they've read the letter and been able to, which is even more of an outrage. That why not Senator Warren, but other people, especially men, allowed to get away with reading the same letter. It certainly shows a double standard, but it certainly shows why that argument struck at such a death blow to the nomination, that they wanted to try to silence it. You're right. That should make it even a stronger point why Senator Sessions is not prepared to be Attorney General.
Reading the tea leaves, do you think there's a chance he'll get shot down, metaphorically?
I think the best chance right now is on the Secretary of Labor nominee, Andy Pudster. Fifth time now they've delayed it. Clearly, they're having some angst in getting it done, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. In fact, I understand he may end up pulling back. We'll be right back with more of your calls for Congressman Marc Pocan.